The hearing is in the matter of case number TCD 009-2020 and it's being held by way of video conference before Justice Lord Angus Glennie, appearing from Scotland. Any orders or directions made during or after the course of this hearing will be issued by the registry in Dubai on the judge's instructions. The claimant is represented by Al Aidaros advocates and lead legal consultants, and the lead counsel is Amar Bajmal. The defendant is represented by Charles Russell Speeches LLP, and the lead counsel is Anthonius Pavlis. Thank you very much.
I can't see counsel for the. I don't know. Can I see counsel for the claimant?
That's me, Your Honor.
Sorry.
Me?
The caption on the picture says Mr. Kiki, and
yes, because I've logged in from his device, so that's yes.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
It's Bajamal, Amar Bajamal. Bajamal.
Thank you very much. Mr. Calvelis, I recognize you, of course, from the previous hearings. Right. I think we're going to have to deal with this issue by issue, rather than each of you speak for half an hour and then me have to ask questions. Mr. Bajmal first, can I just ask you this? I've read both of your post-judgment notes. As I understand it, Mr. Bajmal, you have 2 points of dispute. One relates to interests on 2 of the IPAs, and I need some help on that. The other relates to a question of whether the defendant has received 92,000 odd from China State and should give credit for that in the account. Now, those are the 2 particular points that you raise. Do I take it from that in other respects you agree with the note prepared by the defendants, and particularly the final accounting document on page 36 of the bundle, page 7 of the defendant's note? I just want to make sure I understand the limit of any dispute and what is agreed and what is not agreed. So can you just help me, Mr. Bajmal?
Yes, my instructions are that these are the only 2 outstanding points to be resolved, and that everything else had been agreed between the parties.
So if I was in Mr. Calvelis's favor, then I would make an order for payment by your clients of 17 million odd dirhams. Is that right?
I'm not. I can confirm the number. I've only been instructed to deal with this hearing, so I'm not very much privy to the details that took place before. But
I'm looking at his final account on the page 7 of his note.
If I may, page 7 of his note, I can perhaps before we end this hearing, I will get instructions and just to confirm the amount, and I'll tell Your Honor what's the figure. I'll look at, if you allow me to do that, please.
No, don't do it now. We can deal with the 2 points first. But so those are the only 2 points in dispute. Now, Mr. Calvelis, since these points are raised specifically by the claimants, I think it might be helpful if I heard from Mr. Bajmal first on the first point of dispute and then come to you, and then likewise with the second point of dispute, just deal with them in that way. Is that all right with you, Mr. Calvelis?
Absolutely, Your Honor. But if I may, because I should have, I tried to, I was on mute and I couldn't speak earlier. With your permission, Your Honor, we would respectfully request that my associate, Glenn Bull, who is on the call, he is a solicitor qualified in Australia, Part 1 practitioner, and has applied for Part 2 status. His application is being processed. He has handled this matter with me from the beginning. So with your permission, I would like to respectfully ask that he conducts this hearing under my supervision. I will stay on the call, obviously, but that's our request.
He knows the details, is that right? And
Absolutely, entirely. To details, I'm afraid, deeper than mine.
Mr. Bajmal, are you happy enough with that?
Yes, I have no issues with that.
It's easier, these sort of points, if someone who actually knows the figures and understands the points. So, Mr. Bull, I'm going to proceed on that basis, but I'm going to hear Mr. Bajmal first on the first point of dispute
Thank you,
raised.
No problem.
Thank you. Mr. Bajmal.
Thank you. So, Your Honor, as you may have seen in the skeleton, the judgment that Your Honor made was set out a cutoff date for the calculation of the interest, and that date was the 4th of June 2018. During the discussions, the claimant received an Excel sheet from Reem, and that Excel sheet set out the interest calculation for the various IPAs or the interim payment applications. Within that sheet, Reem had calculated interest with regards to 4 IPAs, and these are numbered 10, 11, 12, and 13. So
these are listed in your skeleton as PC10. What does PC stand for?
Payment certificate. Yes, I think the term was used interchangeably. So what we mean is IPA, because yes.
That's where I was one point of confusion in my mind when I was reading this. Okay, so PC and IPA are interchangeable.
Correct. Well, the thing is, because on the top of the documents, they're actually called interim payment certificate. So if we are to be absolutely precise, perhaps it's going to be IPC. But since everyone was using the term IPA, then I stuck to that term. But we're talking about the same document. So
where do I? Sorry to keep interrupting. Do we have that schedule or spread? The final account with those figures on, do we have that in the bundle?
Yes, correct. I'll just direct you on which page. So this starts at NA1 in the bundle.
NA1.
Yes.
I didn't understand NA1.
These are numberings that appear on the cover of the appendix. So that's, I believe that's number. I'm just going to see on the, yes. So that's number 3 on the bundle.
Page 3.
Yes, page 3. So on the left, it says claimants exhibit NA-1.
I'm here.
Mr. Bajamal, something interrupted. Siri interrupted my listening to you, and you went mute. I just was trying to close him off. I don't know why. He's.
That's all right.
Can you give me a page in the bundle?
Yes, it's page number 3. So on the left hand side, if you just click 3 claimants, the document number 3. Apologies. So okay. So if we're using the numbering at the top, the one in red, it's number 8.
Number 8. Okay.
Yes. So
hold on a sec. Sorry, bear with me. It's taking a moment to load. Hold on, I downloaded it yesterday, so I'll just go to that. Just bear with me a moment. Right, okay, I have it now. Sorry about that.
Okay, so starting, so these IPAs start at page 8 and they go on to page 11 of the bundle. And if your honor take a look at the dates of each one. So the first one appearing on page 8 is dated the 26th of February 2018.
Yeah.
And then if we move to the next page,
yeah,
it's dated the 28th of March 2018.
yeah,
And then on page 10, we have the 8th of May 2018.
yeah,
And then on the last page, we have the 3rd of June 2018, which is just one day before the cutoff date.
yeah.
So on this basis, we say that the amount of 160,000 and 557 should not have been claimed by Reem for the simple reason that it falls outside the date set by the court.
I see. And this is right. Okay. Now I've got those. Now I've got those documents there. I will. Should I turn to Mr. Bull and then come back to you when I heard what Mr. Bull says about this?
Sure.
Mr. Bull.
Thank you, my lord. I'm sorry, but I don't see where this 160,000 falls into the spreadsheet that we've prepared, which starts from the 27th of June with IPA 16, payment certificate 15.
Can you show me
that
this?
is the first calc.
Mr. Bull?
Yes.
So if you keep a look at the screen, I'll put my hand up when I want to interrupt. Can you, if you show me the spreadsheet?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I can share the screen of the spreadsheet. It is actually in the bundle, my lord,
Yeah.
at page 39. But unfortunately, I don't think we have full access to the original format. But if we just go to page 39 of the bundle, it is we can just look at that document to explain it.
Right, at 39. I need to turn it sideways.
Yes.
Hold on.
Sure.
Sorry, Mr. Bull, is so the bundle is titled Appendix 7 on the portal. Is this the document you're referring to?
Okay. So from the portal, it will be under section B, document number 2.
Document 2, yes. So it's okay, and that's page 38.
39, I think you said.
It starts at 38.
I see.
But the relevant page is.
I have it now. Thank you.
Right. Yes, Mr. Bull.
Yeah. This, my lord, this is the calculations that we have done, and the very first calculation of the penalty interest starts from IPA 16, which was dated the 27th of June, and that was after the parties had entered into the subcontract agreement. So that was following.
Where am I on the document? Sorry, I can't see.
Okay,
that.
sorry. So on the first line of this table, the IPA reference is 16. As we move across 3 columns, we have BC 15.
Stop. The problem with the screen's not big enough to get the columns at the left and right. So if you
Yes.
I see. Okay.
I could perhaps share my screen.
I've got it now. It just needs, you've got to bear with me when I.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Top one is IPA 16.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you move across 4 or 5 or 6 columns, the IPA date, so the date that this document was issued was the 27th of June 2018.
Yeah.
So that is after the critical date. This is the beginning of our calculations of the penalty interest pursuant to the orders made. And that IPA was for a net certification of 1.211 million.
Where's that
Also
figure?
on the 20,
Where's that?
it's just behind the IPA date.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right.
Now, so that's where our calculations begin. Our calculations begin from IPA 16 and they go down to IPA 23. And then there is the long running interest in the final few rows below that. But
Right.
I don't see where my learned friend is referring to this amount of 160,000. It doesn't appear in any of these figures. There is no IPA. There is no interest calculated on any of the IPAs prior to the 27th of June, 17th of June, sorry. And there is no IPAs for the amount of 160,000. There is no reference to the payment certificates that he's referred to as well, which I think were 10, 11, 12 or something. They all predate this spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet is the core of our calculation.
Okay, just for the avoidance of doubt, you say that you have not charged interest on PCs 10, 11, 12, and 13 because they came before the critical date. Is that right?
Correct. The interest starts from the overdue payment of IPA 16.
Okay.
And that interest amount, Your Honour, my Lord, was 323 dirhams.
But where do I see that?
Further down about 10 rows down, 10 columns down on the same row, under the heading compound interest.
323
dirhams, yeah.
For IPA.
And 6 fils, yeah.
And
so the first amount was, a very small sum. So again, I'm not sure where the 160,000 is coming from.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Bajamal if he can help on that.
Yes, Your Honor, if you give me just a few minutes, I have someone from the finance department, from the claimant, with me in the same room. He's looking at the sheet and to point out to me the answer. So it will only take 2 or 3 minutes.
Right, I'm going to go on mute for a moment, and I'll come back on when you're ready.
Thank you.
I think it's best to do it this way, otherwise we're going to make no progress.
My Lord, if it is any of assistance, would it be better if I email to the registry a copy of this spreadsheet so you have the Excel version that might be a bit more functional to use? You are on mute, my Lord.
Sorry. The difficulty of Excel versions on screen is that they overspill the edge of the screen, and I'm happy enough I can work with this now, unless Mr. Bajmal raises a point.
Good.
Excel version.
Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor, I have some feedback, thankfully.
Yeah,
Yes, so the sheet, the Excel sheet has, so this on the second ledger, which is titled 16A.
yep,
So there is an amount of 700 and 700,000 and 786. So this amount pertains to includes an amount of 579,799, which
right.
pertains to unpaid VAT from previous IPAs, namely 10, 11, 12, and 13. So in simple terms,
Can you show? I understand the point. Can you show me that?
that is a calculation, and it's so we will have to look at the IPA, that IPA itself, in order to identify that. So that's
Where do we find that?
one moment.
Not submitted.
Right. My apologies, Your Honor. So the amount of 579, if we go to IPA 13, which is on page 11 of our bundle.
Page 11. Yeah, let me just make it bigger. Okay.
So if we look at the bottom at the item that starts with the letter F.
Yep. Add VAT of 5%.
Yes. So
591. Yeah.
So this 579 appears in this IPA as the cumulative. So if you look at the top, it says cumulative amount. So it is an amount.
This is IPA 13.
Correct, which is dated the 3rd of June, which is before.
No, before. I thought the date was May.
The day was the 4th of June. The cutoff date is the 4th of June.
This is 3rd of June. I see.
Yeah. So what I'm told is that this amount, because it says it's cumulative, it means that it was accumulated from periods up to this IPA. And then in IPA 15, because this amount was not paid, it was carried forward, and hence it appeared there as well, but the amount was carried forward from this particular one. And on this basis, we say that it pertains to a period that precedes the 4th of June.
So you're simply going on the word cumulative in the heading of the column, is that right?
Not only that, it's a calculation. So if the accountants did the calculation on the value of each IPA, namely numbers 10 to 13. So in our skeleton at paragraph 4, we've included a table, and the table lists down the exact amount of VAT based on the value of each IPA, reaching to the sum of 579.
It's a tiny point, but the total you get is 579,799, whereas on IPA 13 it is 579,801.
I'm told this is a result of rounding off. So on the IPA, the 99 was rounded off to 8.
That's not rounding. It's you round up to a whole number. You don't round up to another decimal point.
I agree with you. I agree with that. So
but I just wondered if it means we're talking about different things, which coincidentally are the similar amount. I don't know.
I have the person who did the calculation sitting with me in the same room, and he is saying that this is the same number. It may have been a computation error, but my instructions are that this is the same figure, and the breakdown of the figure relates back to the VAT of each payment certificate from number 10 to 13.
Okay, and you say IPA 15 as well shows that same thing, is that right?
That this amount was carried forward into 15.
15, yes.
Do we have 15 here?
I'm not sure if we have 15 in the bundle. I will check that right now.
Right. Well, let me turn to Mr. Bull for a moment. Sorry to do it this way, but I'll understand it better if I follow through. Mr. Bull, you heard, I think, the explanation given, which is based on page 11. The figure of 579,800, say, is the total of PCs, IPA 10, 11, 12, and 13 set out in the column on paragraph 4 of the other side skeleton. And it is said, and you'll have to tell me what you say about it, that shows that the 579 is really a repeat of a claim which was made prior to the cutoff date of 4th June, if I've understood it correctly. And so therefore it is genuinely not a fresh claim after the 4th June. It includes the claims which were made prior to 4th June. Do you want to help me on that?
I don't know if I can help you, my lord, because I just don't see how that is shown at all. I can see that there is some confusion because we have IPA 16, 16A, 17, 17A, 18, 18A, and this follows because there were large payments made which cleared one IPA and then ventured into paying off part of the next one. So you can see on the IPA date column that 16.
We're going back to your what page was it again?
Spreadsheet, page 29, yes. 39, sorry.
39, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So you can see, so it was 16 and 16A is the same certification. It was done on the 27th of June. They were received on the 22nd of August. But that payment was received, sorry, not payment for all of IPA 16, 22nd August. But part of that IPA was paid on the 27th of August, 424,000, and the balance of that IPA was paid on the 2nd of October.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah,
But-
and
yeah.
it's this payment on the 2nd of October which has caused some concern. It is the payment that is noted on 17th of October, where they have noted in column S, so it's to the very far right-hand side. It says 5 RED reply 18th of the 4th, 2023.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of this page, yeah, of this page 39.
I've got it. Yeah. The amount of 786 mentioned in cell 1 4.
So at that point, we were told that there was an issue over that entire amount of 786,502. Yeah, but this issue about the sum.
Sorry, Mr. Bull, you've frozen. Or you've gone.
Sorry, I hope I'm back. Yeah, I hope I'm back. It's this matter of S4 and this amount of 786 that has been the problem from the beginning in this matter. But Your Honour, this is a payment received. Whatever that payment was for, it is irrelevant. It is how it was applied to the outstanding bills at the time. So when we received this amount, which I think in total was about 1.1 million, it was applied to the payment certificates that were outstanding at that time. Yeah, so the 786 came in a single payment with the 51,000, sorry, with it. So that's a little over 800,000 received. End of October was applied. Balance of interim payment application 16 and to the first portion of interim payment application 7 to 10.
Apologies, I'm no longer able to hear you, Mr. Bull.
It seems that the connection of Mr. Bull is not very good, Your Honor, and apologies for that.
Issued on the 17th date was its own.
I think I should take over, Your Honor, because the connection is very bad. Your Honor?
I don't know, but nobody's been able to explain that.
I'm not sure we can hear the judge anymore.
You're on mute, Your Honor.
I will try to change to phone.
Yeah, Your Honor.
I was on mute. Sorry. I muted myself so I could try and improve the hearing of Mr. Bull, but Mr. Bull, are you there? I can see your hand, Mr. Calvedas.
I think I should take over, Your Honor, because the connection of Mr. Bull is not good. we're not in the same
I've
place.
just switched, Thanos. I don't know if it's a little bit better now.
It's better now. Should we carry on as we were for a minute, Mr. Carlos?
Okay.
Should we
Yeah,
carry on?
if I just
with
finish this
Bull?
point.
Yeah, okay.
So
Mr.
we
McCullough,
had
if you close your picture down. That's it. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bull.
we had an issue raised about the amount of 786,000, but that was the
Yeah.
amount that was paid on the 2nd of October 2018. The lump sum of that payment was the 786 plus the 51,000 in the amount below. And how that amount was applied was to the balance of the outstanding accounts, the invoices that were overdue. Those invoices were issued in following with their own payment applications, and those dates all start from the 27th of June. So I just don't follow. I never have.
You've broken up again.
Mr. Bull, can you try signing out and signing back in again? And checking your connection, please?
Apologies, Your Honor.
What should we do? Should we give Mr. one more chance, or shall we switch to you? It's better to have Mr. Details better than you do. So, Mr. Bull, why do you?
Sorry, my lord.
Don't worry. Why don't you try signing out and coming back in again?
Okay.
If it doesn't work, we'll go to Mr. Carvelis, but he won't mind me saying that he's probably second best on this.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Your Honor.
Okay, but if you can close your picture as well, Mr. Carvelis, for the moment, and we'll try and get Mr. Bull back.
I hope it's better now.
Mr. Bull, hello.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Bajamal, are you online? Can you hear what we're saying?
Yes, I am. I can hear everyone.
I think Mr. Bull's back, so let's take advantage of his presence for as long as it lasts.
Good. I'm terribly sorry.
Don't worry.
Your Honor, all I'm trying to point out is that the only issue in relation to this amount seems to be this payment that was made on the 2nd of October. In the document, it is this is in the spreadsheet a point they raised a concern about. Their initial concern was over a sum of 500,000. Now it is a different sum, but sorry, the initial problem was over the whole 786,000. Now it's a lesser sum of 500. So again, it's only a portion of this, but it is the case that on the 2nd of October, Reem, 5 paid Reem the sum of about 820,000 dirhams. 786 of that was applied to the outstanding payment due on IPA 16, and the 51,000 was applied to the most recent invoice for IPA 17. Now, there is a disconnect between the amounts they were paying and the amounts that was outstanding. Now, this seems to be the fact that there was GST VAT paid at different periods, and so, but it doesn't affect this calculation on the screen. It's the case that IPA 16 was calculated and included VAT, and it was 1.211 million, and they paid when they paid that off, whatever amounts they paid, they were just applied to whatever was outstanding at that time. And so that's why we don't have interim payment certificates being cleared every month in full. They're being part cleared and part is left outstanding for another prolonged period. And then the two payments would apply across the next two amounts. So there's a disconnect here with regards to payment of VAT. The contract doesn't provide for any payment of VAT at different times. Everything that was in the interim payment application was due and payable. And these interest calculations have been calculated on the interim payment applications beginning on the 27th of June. Now, if they had amounts for VAT that were due and they were paying them off back from the three previous interim payment applications, that payment of 786,000 plus the 51 on the 2nd of October, it has nothing to do with that in my view. It was simply just a sum that was received. What they accounted for it in their own books is up to them, but the amount that we received was 820, and we applied it to the amounts that were outstanding on that date. So I am a bit lost in that their concern is a payment amount, not an invoice amount. They're not contesting the amount that IPA 16 was 1.211 million. They're contesting or raising with the amount that they paid for that.
Mr. Bull, I think there's a short point here, which is this, that in my judgment, for reasons set out in paragraph 115, I said that interest was recoverable in accordance with FIDIC clause 14.8, but limited to IPAs issued after 4th of June. 4th of June?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Their point, I think, is a simple one. Sorry, and the reason for that was it wasn't until then that FIDIC conditions were incorporated.
Correct. I agree. Yep.
What I think the other side argue is that, albeit they paid under 16A and 17 in August and September, sorry, in October 2018, those payments related to, in part, as to 579,000 to IPAs which were issued before that date. And therefore, IPAs issued before that date shouldn't attract interest in the same way. I think it's a simple point like that. Now, I think you accept, tell me this, I think you accept, leave aside the legal argument for the moment, factually, I think you accept that 579,000 of IPA 16, 16A was related to the IPAs which had been issued prior to the 4th of June, and hadn't been paid by then, and therefore they were rolled up into a further application.
No, that's not correct. No. So before this, there is the spreadsheet that we had available for the trial that was part of Paul Craig's expert report, listed every IPA from beginning to end. And there was no time when one IPA accumulated value and increased because of non-payment. Every IPA is separate. It reaches the total value of the contract, and the payments were made in correspondence to those. but I understand there was a practice of paying VAT separately after the dates because the VAT wasn't recoverable from the government for until the end of each quarter or something.
But Mr. Bajamal showed us a document which was at page 8.
11. Yes. 11, Your Honor.
Thank you. Page 11 of the bundle. I think it's a very short point, this. And he says, if you look at page 11, do you have that? This is IPA
Yep.
13, I think. Sorry, I'll just make it bigger so I can read it.
Yeah.
Of 3rd of June. And the figure at F is VAT at 5%, and it's all said to be a cumulative amount. And he says that figure of 579 amounts to within a few dirham of the value of those 4 previous IPAs, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
But I don't follow why that. Firstly, the spreadsheet that I'm looking at on page 39, it doesn't include this amount. The IPA, we're talking about payment of interest on the IPA. The interest that accrued on this IPA was never included in our calculation.
Because this
579.
This is
this 579 relates only to this interim payment application. I assume that without doing the maths, it's the 5% of the sum that is net due and payable.
Yeah, I see.
So each interim payment application has its own VAT amount, and that each interim application is entirely separate. And it's the interim payment application that follows this, the one dated 27 June, I believe, which is a critical one. And the total of that one is 1.211 million. And that's what was due and payable. And whatever sums was then subsequently received was applied to that. And it was there was no interest calculated on this 579. That our spreadsheet just does not include this sum anywhere in it.
I see. And what you're saying is, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but if I understand you correctly, you say IPA 16, 16A, and 17 on your schedule don't include sums unpaid from a previous IPA.
100%. 100%.
And Mr., do we have IPAs 16 and 16A in the bundle?
We don't have them in the bundle, but the law firm is now sending them to the registry by email. I believe they've already been sent to the registry, and it should be on its way to Your Honor now.
15.
Mr. Bajamal, when you showed me page 11,
yes.
I understand the point you're making on page 11, a cumulative amount of 579,000 odd. But and you say that picks up past VAT that's due on previously demanded payments. But if you look at the schedule on page 39, so I've lost my page numbers now. But the schedule that Mr. Bull relies on, that doesn't include IPA 13, which is the one you showed me. It starts at IPA 16. And unless you can show, it seems to me that unless you can show me that IPA 16 and 16A 17 include claims for amounts previously demanded prior to the 4th of June, that's the narrow issue, I think. If you can show me that, then I'd understand the force of your point. If you can't show me that, I think the point disappears, doesn't it?
I understand. When the document arrives, we will put it on the screen and so everyone can see it. But I have to point out from now that when we see that figure, the figure is not going to match the 579 because the amount keeps going up with the value of each IPA. So it would be included, but it would not be identical. It would be higher
Well,
than
this is
this.
this is the problem, that you would need to show me a chain of different IPAs which showed this same 579 coming through all the way to the 16 to IPA 16.
That's a fair comment, Your Honor. But I would like to just explain to put some narrative into this scenario. What used to happen during the conduct of the project is that the claimant was advised at the time that it legally has 6 months to pay the value of VAT on each IPA. So what used to happen is that when they receive every IPA, they would pay the value of the IPA without paying the VAT. Hence, we do not accept the manner in which Reem has demonstrated the amounts on this sheet. So the Excel sheet that appears on page 39 of the bundle, we do not accept the presentation element of it, because the value of payment certificate or IPA 15 was almost 1.2 million dirhams, not 700,000. And this amount, the principal amount of the IPA, was paid in full in August. The dispute here is about so what used to happen is that the principal would be paid, and then VAT would only be paid within the 6 months afterwards. So the VAT amounts kept getting accumulated independently of the principal amounts. And hence, the matter is about computation. In order to understand whether the claimant had paid VAT, so if we look at the dates of the IPAs, then yes, the claimant was late in paying the VAT of IPAs 10, 11, 12, 13, because at the time they were led to believe that they had 6 months. Now, wrongfully or rightfully, but this is the fact. They were always on these particular, from numbers 10 to 13, they were late in paying the VAT. Now, the question is, the debate today is whether there is any interest due on the number of days of delay on the VAT. So,
yeah.
So the calculation that so the only way for Your Honor to understand or to decide who's right and who's wrong is to look at the value of each IPA and find out how much was the VAT due on that one. That's what we did in paragraph 4 of our skeleton. And then see when that payment was made. So therefore, there was a payment that was made late. That was the October payment. And that entire amount was VAT.
That was
And
paid.
part of it relates to numbers 10 to 13, which date back to before the 4th of June. That's what I'm saying.
How can you show that?
I'm afraid the only way to if we look at the IPAs on their face, because the amount keeps moving up every time an IPA is issued, we wouldn't see the figures number for number. So the only way, it's a computation issue. So the only way to do this is to calculate the 5% VAT on the value of each IPA, and then look at when it was paid or not paid. That's the only way to do it.
Hold on. I can see that that would be an interesting exercise, but the other way of doing it is to look at IPA 16, 16A, and 17, and see whether they include any element of payment that should have been made under previous IPAs.
That's a fair point, Your Honor, but this point and the issue is that you are asked to take the information mentioned in this particular ledger of the Excel sheet as correct. But we say that we cannot take this as a starting point because the information mentioned in this particular ledger is wrong, because the amount that was paid is almost 1.2 million, not 700,000. So that we dispute the accuracy of the figures presented here by Reem. That's the issue, and that's why we object to having this document as the starting point in the discussion.
Right. That's a much bigger point than you've highlighted in your note of argument.
Correct, because I've taken further instructions whilst Mr. Bull was speaking, and that's
the problem is that this hearing was fixed to resolve two specific issues and then consequential matters, but two specific issues which have been identified. And now you're saying there's actually much more to it than that, and we can't just go on with new documents and then say, well, it's uncertain because this and that and the other. I have to go on the material I've got. Fine, if you can produce a document which is not in dispute, but I'm not going to reopen the spreadsheets.
I understand this, but we're not raising a new point here. The point of dispute that we raised under number 1 is that the claimant's calculation includes calculation on interest on VAT amounts that were paid late. So we're still on the same point.
I see that, but you're trying to prove it though by you've had an opportunity of putting in documents to prove it. You're now trying to put in more documents to prove it in a different way. And at the moment, what you've put forward by reference to your table at paragraph 4 of your submissions is you've identified the 579, you've shown me IPA 13, which has that as a cumulative total. And if you had shown me IPA 16 or 17 with showing clearly that it included an element of VAT which should have been paid before the 4th of June, then I would understand that, but it's not what you've done so far.
Perhaps, okay, we can try doing that. Did the registry email you any documents from us?
I don't know. Hold on. This
My lord.
Yes, Mr. Bull.
My lord, whilst you've been talking, I have located the spreadsheet from Paul Craig's report. Now, in that document, that brings up the IPAs 11, 12, 13, 14. And so I can see that it is the current amount of each of these interim payment applications that has been applied to Mr. Craig's table. So for 14, amount noted in his schedule of 3,849,114.27.
What date is it?
It's not on the spreadsheet because it's on Paul Craig's spreadsheet from his expert report.
Yeah, I just wonder what date the IPA was. IPA
yes.
14.
Yes,
it was 30 April 2018, and was. I just need to see the name of the columns. So the IPA date was 30 April. That's what he has recorded,
right?
Which is period ending in the certificate. So that's where he's taken that number from, that date from.
And your point about this is what?
The point is that it doesn't include any cumulative amounts. Each amount that Mr. Craig has put into this schedule is based on the current amount being demanded. And so it follows that, and I expect, I'm sorry, I don't have the interim payment application certificates. It's not until today that this is what I understood was even being discussed. And my learned friend has been helpful in explaining where these figures have come from, but it just doesn't show up in our spreadsheet that we prepared for this calculation. Interim payment 16 is the amount that was claimed, is the current amount that was claimed. It is for the amount of works that was performed and the VAT on those works.
Performed after, but just to be clear, you say it doesn't include anything previously claimed up to IPA 15.
Correct.
Simple point. Points as simple as that, you say.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you understand the argument, Mr. Bajamal? That Mr. Bull is saying that IPA 14 doesn't include anything already built in IPA 13, and IPA 16 doesn't include anything already built in IPA 15 and previous. That's right, Mr. Bull, is it?
Yeah,
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, I understand what Mr. Bull is saying. I think the best thing to do is to take Your Honor's offer to go through IPA 15, which should have now been emailed to you by the registry, and
Right.
I'll walk you through how what I'm saying is correct.
Hold on a second then. Let me just pick up an email from the registry.
This 5%, please. No, it is
Hold on.
This 5%.
Right, I'm getting there. Right, IPA 15, I have it.
I think I ought to put it on, unless Mr. Bull has it separately.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Then perhaps I'll put it on the screen so he can have the benefit of looking at it.
Thank you.
Now you can share it. Yes. Can everyone see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, so Mr. Bull, can you see my screen?
I can. If you could just scroll down, that'd be
Yeah. So Your Honor, this is we're looking at IPA 15, and if we go down to the same ledger F, so the amount that appears here under the same cumulative amount of VAT is 786,550. And if we look at the value of this particular IPA, the value is 1.117.
Yes.
And the 5% VAT here is set to be 786, which cannot logically be the 5% of the 1117. So the way this document works is that the 5% VAT is 5% of the cumulative of the 35 million, which appears on the top box of the amount. And then the 5% of the 117 is right beneath that, which is the 93,000. So what we are saying is that the earlier 579 amount, which we saw in number 13, is now part of the 786, which appears on this amount. Now,
How much, Mr. Bajamal, how much is being claimed on this interim payment application?
that's 1,117,000. That's the third box in the blue.
Sorry.
No, it's 1211, isn't it?
Correct. Yes, with the VAT 1211. Correct.
Correct with the VAT.
So 1211, including that.
Yes.
Yeah.
including the current VAT, not the 786, but the amount being claimed in interim payment 16, as on our schedule, is 1211, 262.25, exactly what is on this form here as the current amount.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely abundantly clear that every payment claim that has been made has no regard to prior or unpaid VAT. The way it's paid may have, but the contract does not provide for payments to be split and VATs to be withheld. Every payment application under the FIDIC contract is payable in 56 days. And that is exactly what Mr. Craig has done. And that is why the payments are cut into these two amounts. It continues to be broken up because payments were not coming in the full amounts due. They were coming in different batches and with different sums in mind. But what was in the mind of 5 is irrelevant to the amount that was due and payable. And that's how Mr. Craig has calculated the interest.
Mr. Bull, so do I take it that, as a matter of fact, leaving aside the arguments, that you accept that this 786 includes amounts from the previous VAT?
That is the cumulative VAT that has accumulated across the whole of the project. That is just a cumulative sum that essentially shows a percentage of either the volume of works or the amount paid against the volume of works. But the only thing that is being claimed in our spreadsheet, where we have calculated interest of 323 dirhams and 4,939 dirhams, is the amount of 1.211262.25, which is the exact amount shown there as the current amount. That is the works performed that month plus the 93 VAT that month.
Your Honor, what I understand from what Mr. Bull just said is that he seems to accept that, as a matter of fact, this includes, however, because how the claimant behaved during the contract, now they should be liable because they didn't behave in a manner that is compliant with the contract. But this does not sit.
Mr. Bajamal, I don't think he's saying that. I think all he's saying is that when you look at this IPA, and it's number what?
15.
16.
This one is 15.
IPA 16, payment certificate 15.
Yeah, payment certificate 15.
Yep.
The only amount claimed and paid in reference to this is 1211, which includes only the amount of VAT attributable to the net amount of 1117. And the left-hand column, the column nearest the middle of the page, which includes the VAT of 5% as a percentage of the 35 million. That is not something that's being claimed in the spreadsheet.
Your Honor, the point is, when this amount was paid, the claimant did not pay the 1.2. The claimant paid the 117 because they were always administering the contract in this manner. They thought that they had 6 months to pay VAT every time. So
that may well be so, and I don't think it matters. What matters is whether sums claimed in the spreadsheet as from IPA 16 onwards, whether those included sums initially claimed before the 4th of June. And as I see it, on the basis of this document, it looks as though the sums claimed in the various IPAs only include the VAT for the period in question.
On the face of this sheet, that is correct. However, what we are saying is that in the sheet, if you give, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can go back to the sheet. So, Your Honor, on looking at the sheet, so on items 16 and 16A of the sheet, the Reem is saying that the net certification was 1.211, right? First of all, this is not a correct description, because net usually means without VAT. But here it's said to be, we just saw that the amount including VAT was 1.2. So that's the first remark. Secondly, what my instructions are is that this amount, the 117 that we just saw, was paid all at once, not in 2 tranches. So, however, this sheet seems to show that the amounts were received in 2 tranches, one in August and one in October. That's the point that is being made, that there is an issue with how Reem is showing the information.
I can provide some light on that.
Just
When we had
just before you do that, can I just be clear? The 7A, if you look at spread IPA 15, which I've got on screen, the total VAT for the whole project was 786,550 thereabouts. Yep, that's as a 5% of the 35 million, and that is very similar to the figure that appears for 16A.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks to the untutored eye, and this is coincidence, that 16A is a claim for the VAT, which is in the left-hand column of schedule of IPA 15.
Yes. Okay. So I can shed light on this. And I am referring to the spreadsheet that was in Paul Craig's expert report, which listed every single payment certificate and every payment that was received. I mean, this document was shared to the parties before the trial, several months before the trial, analysed by their legal team, analysed by Five, analysed by Five's expert, and not an error was identified. This is the exact point that was also raised to me when I spoke with Mr. Akiki. When we're negotiating these figures, Mr. Bergmal and Ali Darouz did not participate in those discussions. I spoke directly with Mr. Akiki and Mr. Akiki's legal counsel, and that point was raised. He said to me, and he showed me the bank statement, we never paid on the day of 27 August, we never paid the amount of 424. We paid 1.1 odd million that day. So it is on the schedule that that's in Mr. Craig's full spreadsheet from his expert report, when there was no cutoff date set by my lord in his orders, and he calculated interest on every payment that was late, that it showed the 693,000 of that period. The balance of that 1.17 was applied to payment certificate 14, 693,138 dirhams and 11 fils was applied to that. That invoice was issued on the 31st of May and due for payment on the 26th of July. So the balance of that was then applied as the first payment towards payment certificate 15, 16, IPA 16. And then it seems that the balance of what Reem Five had paid was essentially equivalent to the back pay of all of the VAT that hadn't been paid, and they've paid that in a tranche that has come as part of the next sum, which has been applied to 16 and 17. The payment was received on the 2nd of October. So it's hard to explain it, and I apologize, I'm not an accountant, but the logic is clear that the payments fell out of sync, and it's perhaps because of the fact that that was being withheld, because the amounts being claimed were always the works done and the VAT for that period, but the payments that then started being made were for just the works done and not the VAT, and then the VAT was included in a subsequent payment as an additional sum, and this threw all the payments out of sync.
Mr. Bull, if I understand you correctly, the VAT was paid later on all or most of the payments, sometimes in a composite sum made up of several outstanding VAT payments.
I agree, yeah.
But would it be right to say that the amount claimed in 16A of 786 represents the VAT accumulated but previously unpaid?
No.
Why is that not right? Because it looks, the figures are remarkably similar.
It's just because that's the at that time, on the 2nd of October 2018, the Five paid a sum of 820,000, it appears to be. That's the amount they paid.
That's
and
the two figures.
The way in which they calculated that, I don't know. The reason why perhaps 786 was outstanding about at the time. But as I've said, the very first calculation of interest is only applied to payment certificate 15. So everything else that was late and overdue and had interest accrued on it has all been disregarded as per my Lord's orders.
Yeah, but
the spreadsheet that we have is interim payment application reference 16. The amount being claimed was 1.211, and the first amount of that was paid 5 days late, and so it only accrued interest of 323 dirhams. And the second part of that, which wasn't received until the 2nd of October, was 41 days late, and that accrued 4,939 dirhams. So that is the very first calculation of interest. Everything else outstanding overdue, it just doesn't appear on this spreadsheet. It hasn't been calculated, hasn't been taken into account. There was payments came in that reflect that, but it doesn't make up for the fact that all the other accounts were overdue at the time.
Do we have a copy of IPA 16A?
No, there is no 16A. It is only split that way because as you can see, it doesn't have a separate amount because it's 1.211. It is 20, both done on the 27th of June, both due on the 22nd of August. It is just that the amounts that came in, it was applied in 2 different tranches. It wasn't paid as a single amount. It may have been intended to be. That may have been what Five was intending to do. But as Mr. Craig has lined up all of the payment applications on one ledger and all of the bank receipts on the other, and has just marked them off as payments out, invoices out, payments in, and it has come out in this this structure.
Do we have IPA 16 available?
Was that the one on the screen, or no? Sorry, that's the next one
on the screen. Or does Mr. Craig tell us what IPA 16 claimed?
Yeah, I will get the. I have it here. IPA 16 had an amount due of 837,943 with a VAT amount of 106,000. Perhaps maybe I can explain this in simpler terms. What we believe was done in this sheet, because as Mr. Bull just said, there is no IPA 16A, there is only 16. So what happened is that what you see in this Excel sheet is how Reem applied the payment of PC 15 once it was received. So the amount that was received is the 1117. Because there was an outstanding payment of VAT at that time, what happened is that Reem applied the money that was received towards payment of the previous amount, and then started to calculate interest as if there was a shortfall in the value of 16. I think Mr. Bull agrees with me. So this was.
It's correct. There was a shortfall. You were behind in the payments, and that's why they were split this way. And the payments the payment was demanded was 1.211 million. Until we received amounts to start reducing that debt, that accrued interest. Now, the first part of that only accrued 323 dirhams of interest. You paid a portion of it off, 424,000 quite early, but a substantial portion of that claim wasn't paid. It wasn't paid for another 41 days.
Right. So just to summarize. So to summarize that, again, I don't want to put words into Mr. Bull's mouth. I will say what I think is the position. The point of dispute at the moment, Your Honor, is whether Reem was entitled. So there was a separate payment of the full value of PC 15 at 1117, which I believe Reem is not denying that it was paid in full. What has happened is that because Reem applied part of that payment towards a previous VAT amount, then it is now coming up with an interest accrual on the amount that it says was a shortfall in the payment. What we say is that the conduct of the product of the project from day one, that Reem knew from day one that we were always paying the VAT afterwards, and the entire amount of VAT was paid, as Mr. Bull just said, in one chunk afterwards. So in these circumstances, we say that Reem was not entitled to allocate the payment received on PC 15 the way that it did, because it was the full value of PC 15.
Mr. Bajamal, that's taking the argument to a different point. The argument focused in these submissions is as to whether the amount claimed and paid was attributable to claims that had been made prior to the 4th of June or originally or only after the 4th of June. There's no issue been raised so far, and I'm not going to allow a new issue as to whether Reem correctly allocated payment to different sums. The question is not so much whether payment was allocated correctly, but whether the sums claimed were claimed for the first time after the 4th of June.
I understand your point, Your Honor, but let me explain further.
Mr. Bajamal, please, can you put on the screen IPA 16?
I have to get it. So I just need 2 minutes, if you allow me. It will be emailed to me right now.
I think the one you just had on the screen, was that
Take
right?
less than 2 minutes. No, that was 15. It's being emailed to me right now, so it'll take less than a minute, hopefully.
It was 15 or
16.
16.
Maybe it was 16 we were looking at. It's called out.
There is that, yeah. You mean the 1.211 claim,
Yeah.
my lord?
That was 15, Your Honor.
Yes, but it was 16 in precisely the same amount.
No, 16.
No, IPA 16, PC 15, correct.
Oh, I see. PC 15 is the same as IPA 16.
Correct.
I see. Sorry.
Something that's occurred.
Right. I'm going to put it again on the screen.
I've got it myself. So the two, sorry, then just to be clear, I think I'm beginning to understand. IPA 16 claimed 1.211 million. Yeah. That included the VAT on the amount attributable to the principal sum of 1117.
Correct.
But did not include any other VAT element previously accruing.
That's correct.
IPA references 16 and 16A on the schedule Mr. Bull has prepared on the total. That's that figure of 1.211 million.
Correct.
Which is the sum claimed under IPA 16 or PC 15. And so it seems to me on that basis that the sum claimed, the 786, sorry, the 786,000 odd. So I've just got to go out of the screen a bit. Yeah, the 786,000 odd does not relate to past amounts claimed prior to the 4th of June, but simply relates to sums claimed under IPC, under IPA 16 for work done after the first claimed after the 4th of June. And I'm not going to let this discussion, it's been very helpful, but I'm not going to let it go on to the exclusion of the other point we've got to decide. But that's the way I see it at the moment, Mr. Bajamal. And on that basis, I think it seems to me your point would fail. I'll give you one more chance, briefly.
Thank you.
To persuade me, but that's the way I'm thinking at the moment.
Thank you. Your Honor, the issue is that this division that you are seeing on the Excel sheet is superficial, because the IPA has an amount of 1117, and we say that we paid 1117 without the VAT. So the amounts that you, yes, it is correct that if we add the two amounts appearing in the Excel sheet, we will reach to the 1117. However, this division, these two ledgers are superficial, because the value of the IPA was 1117 and the amount received was 1117. It's only Reem who decided to divide the two payments into the 700 and the 400.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bull accepts that.
If they hadn't done that, they would have paid the whole amount of 1.211 in one go.
And there wouldn't have been any interest due, because the IPF was fully paid.
That's an argument. That's an argument about the way they dealt with the payment when received, rather than about when the claims were first made.
No, it is. I understand. I understand this point. The issue does relate to amounts being to amounts or interest accruing for amounts before the 4th of June. Why? Because when the value of the VAT, the delayed VAT was later on paid in one chunk. Now, that VAT included VAT for periods before the 4th of June and after the 4th of June. Now, we are here today to discuss the disputed amount which is being claimed on the interest, i.e. that Mr. Bull is saying that this particular payment, which is 15, PC 15, was not paid in full on time. That's his position. And hence, from that, he's claiming interest on the amount. What we are saying is that, no, there is no interest at all, because this was fully paid.
Yeah.
So it relates to the same issue. It's not because the court's directions were for the parties to agree on a final account on interest based on the court's directions. So the dispute goes as to whether interest is due at all.
No, but the dispute focused in the arguments has been on the question of whether part of the sum claimed in the schedule was first invoiced, first demanded, claimed prior to the 4th of June. There was no question raised, and I'm not going to allow a new point to arise about how the monies were treated when they were paid. So I think on this point, Mr. Bajmal, I think we've got to bring this discussion to a close. But it seems to me that I'm not persuaded that any sums covered by the defendant's spreadsheet was first claimed before the 4th of June 2018. In fact, I'm satisfied that those sums were all claimed first claimed after the 4th of June 2016. And on that basis, the claimant fails on the first issue raised in the submissions. So that's my ruling on that point. Let's come to the second point of dispute, and this is, I hope, a shorter point. And I should say thank you both for your help on that. It's a complicated matter. I've come to a decision, but I agree with both your help on that point. The second point of dispute is that the claimant says that the defendant fails to factor in the sum of 92,000 dirhams, which the defendant received from China State. And as I understand it, you have, well, can you show me, Mr. Bajmal, the documents relevant to this?
Yes.
What page do I go to of the bundle?
Yes, I'm finding it, locating it right now. Yeah, so it starts at page 12, Your Honor.
For some reason, I somehow managed to get the document going off the edge of the screen. Page 12.
There's a maximization tab which has 4 arrows.
Yeah, I've done that, but somehow it's not only maximized, but removed it from the right-hand side of the screen. Page 12. Yeah. Okay.
This is a simple point, which is that in the claim that Reem made, there was a payment. There was a interest on a payment which they say they've received in a certain amount, which is the value of. If we go now to page 14.
Yeah.
So the value of this payment certificate is,
yes, 12,746. Sorry.
Yes. So the disputed point is very simple. What Reem says. Apologies. If we go further to page 16, there's a comparison table.
Yeah. And I'm just going to turn it around. Yeah.
Right. So the simple point is that what we say that so this document establishes that the amount that Reem received from China State was 2,115,818, whereas in the
what is this document there?
This is a document that is produced as part of the payment application. So it's signed. I'm not sure whose signatures are those, but it's an annexure to the.
It's a Reem document. It's a Reem document.
Yes. On the top it says it's part. To be honest, I'm not sure if this is a Reem document, but it is an annexure to the payment recommendation made by, which is the IPA, another IPA issued by the engineer, and then these are the annexures to that document. I'm not certain whether it was produced by Reem.
Oh, okay.
The point here is that this document, according to this document, the amount received by Reem was 2,115,818, and in the Excel sheet, or what Reem has claimed now is that what it had received was 2,023,000, which leaves the shortfall of the 92,000, and hence the dispute now. So my submission on this is that obviously the payment came from China State, and we do not have the document that establishes how much exactly was paid by China State, but we have this document in front of us which says that China State was liable to pay this amount. We don't have a copy of a check or a wire transfer because we did not make the payment ourselves. So my submission is this, is that in circumstances where Reem is disputing the fact that is mentioned on the payment certificate, then Reem should produce evidence as to how much was actually received from China State to clear this point. However, Reem did not do that in their submissions in reply. Instead, they simply said that we shouldn't be allowed to raise this point at this stage because it was not raised during the proceedings. And my submission to Your Honor on this is that this is a simple matter of fact. Was the amount received or not? And the only party that is available here that knows this for a certain is Reem. So therefore, if they submit this piece of information, it resolves the issue.
Yes, Mr. Bull. You say in your note that you don't understand the documents that Five have put forward.
Correct. This amount has changed twice now. Firstly, the amount that was noted in the spreadsheet, they put a comment there that said that there was an overpayment of 76,000. Now in these submissions, it's 92,000. I don't know where this figure is coming from. It's but the fact is, the parties were agreed on the amount that had been paid months before the trial. They entered into consent orders in which Your Honor noted in the judgment with regards to the payment of the 1.811.
Where's that in the judgment?
I believe it's paragraph 110 of the judgment, page 98 of the bundle. This refers to the consent orders that were made, where the parties agreed that if the amount certified by the engineer was X and the amount that had been paid was Y, the balance payable to Reem was 1.811837.07 plus VAT. This was an agreed fact the parties had resolved by way of consent orders, both the value that the engineer had determined, which was simply just a single figure in his engineer's determination, and the amount that had been paid to Reem so that we could reach this figure. Again, I go back to Mr. Craig's expert report. He accounted for every single payment received. Sorry.
So this figure in paragraph 110 of 1811 dirhams. That's the figure that is arrived at by, amongst other things, agreeing the amount that Reem have received for the project.
Correct, precisely.
Right. Okay. Do I see that made clear somewhere else in the judgment, or not?
No, because this wasn't an issue in the judgment. There was no debate in the whole trial as to the amount of money that Reem had been paid. It was an agreed fact going into the trial that Reem had been paid a figure and it was seeking the balance of it. And that figure was made up to the amount that the engineer determined. And that's by way of that consent order. I believe it was entered into in March.
Do we have the consent order in the bundle?
No, we don't. We don't, Your Honor.
But the consent order agreed the amount that Reem had received. Is that right?
Yes. I will just try and locate a copy. No, I'm sorry, I can't find. I'll have to log on to the portal to locate that consent order.
I think it might be
But
if there is one.
okay, I will do that straight away.
Mr. Bajmal, I just want to get this point established first before we then enter into the discussion. So I'll give Mr. Bull a couple of minutes to log on. I'll just mute myself and go off camera for a moment.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Should we have 5-minute break and then we'll resume in 5 minutes time?
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Bull, Mr. Bajmal, are you both ready?
We have a copy of the consent order, my lord.
You
I was just hoping to. Yes, it's been shared to the registry, but I can show a copy on the screen.
Yeah.
It doesn't mention the sum. I'm just trying to find perhaps if it's in the defence as an admitted fact, because I mean this really was such a non-issue from the very beginning of this case. The amount paid was always considered agreed, and that's why we.
What do you reckon the amount paid was? If you look at paragraph 30 of my judgment, it talks about a sum paid of 39,572,130.68.
Correct.
And you add to that the 181,837.07. Which
and that comes up with the exact and that comes up with the exact figure of the engineer.
41,383,967.75. And what about VAT? Does VAT come into it at this stage?
The difficulty with VAT is that it applied to part of the contract, but not other, because the VAT law came into effect whilst this contract was on foot. So I believe that they had accounted for it throughout the entire project as, you know, essentially as my learned friend said earlier, as the net amount.
Right. Okay. So you've got a figure which agrees with my figure, 41,383,967.75.
Yeah, look, I mean, we stand by the calculations done by Mr. Craig. Again, as I said, before the trial, Mr. Craig went through all of the payment applications and all of the payments received. If I go back to that schedule that was in Mr. Craig's report, it does note that payments made early on were left unpaid. This may be what my learned friend is referring to. The difference here may be the margin that was retained by the contractor, the head contractor, and the amount that was paid to the main contractor doesn't necessarily reflect the amount that was paid to the subcontractor, as Reem essentially was working or at least getting paid under that system at that early stage of the works. But from what's been said today, again, I don't see where any of this amount that is claimed to have been paid appears in the calculations that we've undertaken. That's my position, because the calculations done by Mr. Craig was just at all times clearing the amounts of the interim payment applications that we issued along the way. It is only post everything, and for the purpose of the trial, he calculated the compound interest on each of those payments that came late. And because of the orders that were made, and it was only the interest was only calculated on the particular payment applications that are referred to in our spreadsheet, all the compound interest that accrued on earlier payments, on payment certificate 1, where an amount of 1,523,000 was certified, an amount of 1,447,000 was paid, and the late payment that was 149 days late, that payment. It's very hard to find from the documents that had been provided for the trial where this mystery 72,000 that's now been raised is even located or referred to.
Let's call it 92,000 for the moment.
92, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it did change. Yeah, but I really think from where we were, we've had a 5-day trial, and the final amount paid was never an issue in the trial. It is now incumbent on my learned friend to set out a case, make a claim, explain it to us, please, because all that was done over the course of the negotiations that went from March and April and a little bit into May now, is that we received a comment on the spreadsheet. Our records shows that the total payment against PC 1, 2, and 3 made by China State was 2.099 million, etc. And that's on page 39 of the bundle. That comment. It just
hang on a second.
As we said in response. Sorry. Yep.
39.
Page 39, and I have trouble guiding Your Honour, my Lord, to where the comment is, but it is actually under the first column titled 5 read remarks, so close to the far right hand side, but the third from the far right hand side. Yeah. And it is the last comment on that in that column, and it starts with 1 point. Our records show.
Yeah.
This was the first we heard of it. Yeah. And this just claimed that there was the payments made in payment certificates 1, 2, and 3 were not as originally noted. I assume perhaps as noted by Paul Craig, or I don't even know where they're referring back to, but at no point has this been explained. And I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. Paul Craig, his figures were open for scrutiny, attack. They were provided to the other side several months before the trial. They were given to the expert, Five's expert, to review and verify before the trial. They had access to all of their bank statements and the amounts that were paid. They had access to all of their of the contract documents. For this to come up now, it just doesn't make sense. And I'm sure if it was tested and if a proper explanation of what they are claiming was set out, we could, I'm sure it will fail. But that's not really the task of this hearing, to calculate the interest on the interim payment applications that were issued after the 4th of June. And I can tell you, they just aren't put into those sums. They just aren't calculated in this document.
It is calculated. May I respond, Your Honour?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Your Honour, the simple fact is that this amount is said not to have been paid from payment certificate. Was it titled? It's called payment recommendation on the document, says REA 03, and this certificate is dated the 20th of July 2017. So regardless of what the position is as to whether the amount was paid or not, any interest claimed on this amount is barred by way of the cutoff date set out in the judgment.
I thought this was not about interest, this claim. This is a claim about whether or not they have been paid this amount.
It is, and the interest. So it's both.
It's not raised in your interest point. I'm sorry, we can't just have new points raised.
No, I understand that, but they have also calculated. I don't want to go into the interest point, but I was just making the point that they have also added interest into that. Going back to the payment issue, this document on the face of it is
page 5th, page 12.
Yes, the payment certificate. I will
Page-
find the page.
Page 16. Yeah, page 16 or
Page 14, which goes on. So 14 to 16. This set of documents shows that there was a certain amount that was certified in favor of Reem directly. This is not anything that was paid to China State. This is not a certificate that relates to China State. This is a payment certificate that relates to Reem itself.
Sorry, Mr. Bajamal, this document I'm looking at, REA 03, July 2017. What does this show relative to the payment by China State?
If we go to page 16,
Is it a public document or not?
yes, that's the annexures.
Well, take me to the relevant entry on page 14 first.
My apologies, I didn't hear that.
Take me first. Show me first the relevant entry on page 14, and then you can explain it.
Right. So the relevant entity, the relevant amount here is the 12.7 million, which is highlighted in yellow.
Yes, and what is that?
So this is the amount that we say was paid by China State to Reem.
In total.
Partially paid, sorry.
You go to
this amount, we saw the 12 million, 12.7 highlighted in yellow.
Yeah.
And then we say that on the next page, that on page 16, there's a breakdown of how that 12 million was paid, and that this is a document issued by the engineer. So the engineer set out
Page
how
16.
this on page 16. Yes. Yeah. So here, Atkins, the engineer, clarified in this annexure that how this 12.7 million was paid, and he showed that 2.115 was paid directly by China State, and 9.4 was paid through the advance payment, and then 1.2 was paid through PC01.
Right. How does that figure of 2.115 tie in with the figure you showed me of 12.746 on page 12?
It's one of the components of this amount. So the 12.7 is stated in page 14 as the amount paid to Reem. And then on this page, we see the breakdown of how that payment was made. And so it was made in three tranches, 9.7 as part of the advance payment, and 2.115 directly paid to China State, and then PC01 1.2 million.
PC0 being what?
Payment certificate number 1.
All right. And that last figure was paid by 5, was it?
Right. Yes. So the advance payment was paid already in the beginning of the project, and then 1.2 was paid by 5. So, but now what Mr. Bull or Reem are disputing is this figure, the 2115. They say that it is not 2115, it is 2023. So what we are relying on is the document that was issued by the engineer, because if there was any shortfall in the payment received from China State, then the only party that can establish this is Reem.
My lord, I might be able to bring this to a fast conclusion.
If you can.
if you permit me to share my screen,
Yeah.
I have the defence to counterclaim drafted by Five, and if I can share that,
Yeah.
Okay. As you can see, this is Five's defence and particulars of counterclaim, defence to the particulars of counterclaim. And this issue here, in terms of what was paid, is admitted. Since it has been confirmed and acknowledged by the defendant that a total of AED 39,523 dirhams, 523,124 dirhams and 83 cents has already been paid by the claimant to the defendant, therefore the only remaining amount to be paid by the claimant to the defendant is AED 1811837.07. Now that is the exact amount that was then put into escrow in the court and then released to Five. The amount that was paid to Five has never been in dispute in this case until this application, until this point of calculating interest. And my lord, this question has been tried. They had the opportunity in their defence to counterclaim when we set out the amount that we had received in our particulars of claim and the amounts that we were seeking. This just wasn't an issue.
That figure of 39,523 is slightly different from the figure in my judgment of paragraph 30. But that's
so yeah. The figure above it is the 41,334,9619. After deducting the delay penalties due to the claimant. So sorry. So that was the amount that was awarded by the engineer, and this was the amount that was agreed to have been paid, and this was the amount.
In terms of the amount paid, I record in paragraph 30 a figure of 39,572,130 as having been paid. Do you know where that came from?
No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's a small detail because it doesn't really affect the main point. Mr. Bajamal, hang on a second. Just wait a second, could you? Yeah. Paragraph 30, I say, during the course of the works, Five paid a total of 39,572,130.68. And then the further amount into escrow. Hey, it's a mystery where it's come from. It doesn't really matter for present purposes. The point is, Mr. Bajmal, that during the course of the trial, there was agreement and various figures put forward as to what had been paid, and your own clients, as Mr. Bull has pointed out by reference to that paragraph of their response to the counterclaim, have agreed an amount paid, which comes to 39,000 odd. There's no dispute, in other words, about the amount paid. On what basis can you properly raise a dispute now about the amount, about that figure?
Yeah, I'm going to be short on this because I don't want to waste further time on this. The instructions I received on this point are very simple. Is that this amount was not, this was only discovered at this stage, and therefore it was raised now. So the claimant, maybe it was an omission, was that, but it was only discovered now. These are my instructions.
That's very helpful. I understand why you're raising the point, but it seems to me that the judgment, the case proceeded on a certain basis. The judgment recorded various amounts paid. Your own pleadings recognize a similar amount paid. And I don't think I can now reopen that. If you have a separate claim to make and on research, you can find a basis on which to recover it. so be it. I can't say anything about that, but I think you very fairly put the case, and there's no legal basis on which I can reopen the judgment, and it would involve undoing a finding of fact I made in paragraph 30, finding of fact I made in paragraph 110. It would involve undoing the admission in your pleadings, and I don't think I can properly do that. So I'm going to reject your second point of dispute. Now, on that basis, so thank you very much for that. On that basis, am I right in thinking that we can turn to in terms of a judgment that I issue, we can turn to page 36, which is the final account as set out by Reem on the basis that it succeeds on the 2 points in dispute. I think that's right. So what are you asking me to do, Mr. Bull? Are you asking me to make a consequential money order?
Yes, Your Honour. We set it out in the same in the format of essentially the final account, so that it reached the total of 18.9, and then we've acknowledged the receipt of the payment of the funds that was held in court. So the sum due is the 17,028. Now that sum has been calculated with interest up to the 31st of March, which accords with the directions of the court. That was sent to us shortly before the expiry of that negotiation period, being the 31st of March.
If just to explain, I did that because otherwise every day delay would involve a new calculation. And
I appreciate that. I mean, we would welcome the opportunity to just update that up to today, if
no.
Okay. The other side of it, though, is perhaps the judgment interest, and this was a point raised in our submissions. It was interest that was applied against us when the claimant obtained a default judgment against us that it included this paragraph that 9% per annum would be applied from the date of judgment, and our position is that that term should apply.
Mr. Bojman, any comment first on the form of the order and the amount? I think.
Sorry, I skipped ahead.
Mr. Bojman, I think the disputed points having been dealt with, are you content that that figure of 17,028,125.19 is the correct figure?
Yes.
And if I make an order for payment of that sum, I would normally say within so many days of the date of the order. What's the usual provision? Is it 14 days?
It is 14 days unless specified, Your Honour, my lord.
Unless you want to say anything, Mr. Bajma, allowed to say make an order for payment of 17 million odd dirhams within 14 days of the date of this order. Yeah.
Yes.
And what about post-judgment interest? From the end of that 14-day period, would you do you object to that?
That's the usual position, yes. The interest, the period for voluntary payment should not include interest.
Yeah, you don't really object to that, Mr. Bull, do you?
Look, I don't, but I think what we've seen today is that this the delay of these calculations has been attributable to one party, and that perhaps that should account in the interest. Our calculations of interest were stopped from the 31st of March. It's a significant sum, and if the post-judgment interest applied from the date of the judgment, or perhaps directly from today on the second point.
I'm going to make it from the end of the 14-day period.
14 days.
14
Understood,
days.
no problem.
Post-judgment interest at the rate of 9% per annum on the amount awarded shall apply from the 14 days after the date of this order.
Thank you, my lord.
You've raised in paragraph 30 of your skeleton non-payment of 1.9 million. Is that still
Yes,
outstanding?
it is, my lord. And in fact, we received a response.
Is that the sum in respect of costs?
That's correct. Yes.
So I can't make any order about that.
Well, I thought perhaps that my lord would be able to provide some guidance in terms of the submissions made by my learned friend on this point, because they seem to justify the non-payment, and this does concern us. Obviously, we haven't commenced proceedings before the registrar on costs because we were waiting this order today. But they seem to have accused us of proceeding with obtaining the cost order the way we did in some type of wrongdoing in what we applied for and obtained, and seem to justify the non-payment of these costs. And it is a concern to our client. The amount is significant. And we note that there's 1.2 million held in the court, and it would alleviate, it would help our client if that was released and topped back up by my learned friend for the costs hearing that is to follow.
Do I have jurisdiction to deal with that? Isn't that the matter for the registry?
It may be, my lord. We're just trying to find a solution to this because this case has been a success, and we haven't seen any results from it yet, including the 1.9 million that has been ordered to be paid and was due more than a month ago now.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to leave that to the registry to decide this matter. If there's any proper application, I'm not sure what the powers would be, but I think in the first instance it's for the registrar to decide what further steps can be. The only other matter is, I think the only other matter is costs of today. You're asking Mr. Bull for your costs of the post-judgment phase of the proceedings.
Yes,
my
it's been a.
Sorry, I was going to say my inclination would be to say that the process of trying to agree things was properly gone into an inevitable part of a case such as this, and until the dispute was crystallized, it should be each party bear their own costs. But after the dispute was crystallized, in other words, in relation to this hearing, then I would be willing to listen to a submission on costs. And I suspect you will say you've been successful on the 2 points, and therefore you'd like your costs. What about the earlier stage there?
My lord, we were successful in the entire trial, and essentially all of this followed our success of the trial. And if not provided for separately as costs, it essentially is costs of the case. It is something that we incurred purely because of the fact that we had to go through this arduous trial, 5 days. Substantial amount of cost was incurred on that, and this followed
How with costs?
the consequences of that.
Costs so far? Have I dealt with?
No, I don't. I don't have an amount. We haven't provided a cost statement for this hearing.
What order did I make about costs before?
So the 50% was 1.9 million.
No, I'm sorry, it's my fault. The order I made earlier was that the payment pay the defendant's cost of the proceedings.
Correct.
So what you're really asking, I suspect, is for me to include the costs of the post-judgment, costs from the conclusion, costs of the case until today to be included within those costs.
Yes, Your Honour. Yes, my lord.
Mr. Bergman, what do you say?
our position is that as you mentioned, the period of discussions between the parties was not is a normal period where we have exercised, we have discussed in good faith, and we have substantially agreed with the defendant. So there shouldn't be any reason why we should bear the costs for that time period, because we were just complying with the court's directions.
And what about today's hearing?
But that's obviously the costs follow the events, and given that our dispute points were rejected, then that follows.
When was this? When was it clear there had to be a hearing? About 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? 3 weeks ago.
Yes, I think.
I believe 2 weeks ago. I mean,
right. What I'm minded to say is that the claimant shall pay the defendant's costs of and in connection with the hearing of today. Those costs to date to include all preparation for the hearing from, and we fix it. What date is it today? 25th May. From 11th of May. I think it was about then that we decided we had to have a hearing.
Yes.
Happy with 11th of May? I'm not happy, but
That'll be fine. Thank you, my lord.
yes. So the costs of this hearing and preparation for this hearing back to from 11th May until today to be paid by the claimant to the defendant on a standard basis, to be assessed by the registrar on a standard basis if not agreed. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Shala, have you got a note of those various points?
Yes, I have.
Right. But if you want to send me a draft order in due course, I'll just check that I've covered everything.
Sounds good. We'll do that.
Well, thank you both very much. I'm sorry it's taken a long time, but the points took a bit of understanding. So thank you very much.
Thank you, my lord.
Thank you
I do
very much.
apologize for the technical issues. I hope it's been okay.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, my lord, for permitting Mr. Bull to attend. And my
appreciate
name.
We save time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.